Hello, beautiful humans, most divine beings. Elaine with Heart Activation, here to go through another chapter from my book, Blueprint to the Heart Sovereign Healing Journey. And today we get to go into inner child healing. What is inner child healing? Why is this beneficial for us within our healing process? And what are some obstacles that can come up when we are learning to reconnect to our inner child? And how can we really begin to incorporate the idea of living with joy and innocence and a sense of childlike wonder within our lives? If you are familiar, every couple weeks, I go through a chapter of my book, Blueprint to the Heart, which is really about consciously excavating a lot of the barriers that have prevented us from learning how to tune in to our true heart and what it means to live a fulfilling and authentic life. This book, it has been going through how we even wound up the way that we are, how our belief systems were formed, how we were taught to interact with the world, how we learned how to connect and be in relationship with one another, and really helping to connect and dissolve a lot of those armored mind constructs. And so the first chapters have been about really deconstructing and deprogramming, unlearning, unbecoming all of what we thought we were. We are connecting our emotional aspects to how we were raised, how our parents were raised, how we were taught to relate, and what are some of the belief systems that have really prevented us from looking beyond what we know and what we understand. And so now, through the previous chapters, we have really been able to take a look at the macrocosm, so the bigger picture at play that has created the world that we live in, then down to the microcosm, which is our individual and our personal lives, and how that has created how we interact with the bigger world at play. And so, with all of the deconstructing, it is time to learn how to reconnect from a more pure and authentic place. Again, the other chapters were to help deconstruct, to help deprogram, and to help point out where these beliefs and these blockages may be from you and how they even began in the first place. And now we can really tap into how we can learn how to build a life that is in authentic alignment with our truest expression of our heart. Reconnecting to our inner child is a fundamental aspect of our healing journey because every emotional response and reaction comes from the place of an unmet or a heightened emotional experience from younger versions of ourselves. So, inner child work really started with the psychologist, and I'm sure you're familiar, Dr. Carl Jung. Dr. Carl Jung and Dr. Eric Bernay were two of the foundational psychologists that had brought this idea into the psychology world, whereas it has a lot to do with the unconscious and fragmented pieces of our younger version. If we go back to the other video guides that directly talk about childhood trauma, I'm just going to recap. Trauma at any part is something that happens within inside of us when there is a strong emotional shutdown, when our brains shut down and disconnect our body and our body's responses because of the emotional external circumstances. A disconnect happens, a traumatic disconnect happens. And so, inner child healing is when we go back to all of these many different fragmented pieces. So if we can picture this like when we are young, right? We are, we're very fragile little beings and we're relying on these humans that probably don't have much emotional awareness. we're learning that now. We're depending on people that have lived in heightened states of stress and are not necessarily aware on how to cope with life or coping with life in a healthy manner. So every time us as little babes, we have this unmet need, it becomes a fragmented pieces of self. So we're full, we're whole, and all of these things. And here we're some external circumstances, our needs aren't met, we're not listened to, we're not held, we're not nurtured, and we're also not validated within our experience, which happens so much as a child because we are so vulnerable. We create these new pieces of self, a way to get our needs met. Every fragmented piece is a piece that we broke off in order to learn how to make a new mask in order for us to get these needs met. There are different ages and stages that each of these come about. So when I'm working with people and for my own healing process, what I have done is made a timeline. And for me, when I first started diving into inner child healing, I made a timeline of the first 5 years, right? And really just put out everything that I could remember from that. And then I did from 5 to 10 years. And I put in these heightened emotional responses or these heightened emotional experiences that I remember. Let's take, for instance, so when I was 5, I was molested by a 12-year-old boy more than a handful of times. I would put that as a fragmented piece. What are all the different pieces? And then there's another piece where nothing, not as significant or traumatic, but it's still significant and traumatic, would be moving a lot. I moved like nearly every 6 months to a year to a new school. So every time I moved to a new school, there was a time when I got bullied on a bus for having a short haircut and was being called all different names. That would be another time. Then there are times again where maybe like my mom's boyfriend got so upset with me for not having a clean room that he just came in and took my hands and made me clean up everything and was like destructing everything. I watched as my mom didn't really protect me in a way. So what writing these down does, it is as it allows for me to go through when I, as an adult, have these heightened emotional reactions. I can visualize what is it that I'm feeling within me. I'm afraid. I can visualize myself. I can visualize other times as me as younger versions of myself where I felt similar ways. And then what I can do is I can visualize me now doing what I wanted the adult to do in that situation. So I'm literally visualizing myself as I am today, going back to those times when I was 5 or 7 or 10, whatever times they are, and visualizing how I would have liked the caregiver to respond at that time. And really sitting and asking my younger self, like, how can I be there for you? You are safe now. Let me hold you. Let me guide you. And really, it becomes a whole interplay of this visualization. And whether or not you believe in that, it has been one of the most profound times because when we are in heightened emotional reactions as an adult, for people who are truly wanting to make a difference, we're picture, okay, so when was it when little Elaine or younger Elaine also felt this way? And now we have all of the tools of our past chapters and we have this timeline. And we're able to look back and be like, oh, so if you have resonated with anything that I have said over any of the videos, chances are that your childhood and your innocence were not honored, that you had to grow up faster than was okay. It wasn't okay for you to have to go through the things that you went through. It wasn't okay for you to not have a childhood that was filled with experiences of excitement and safety and purity and innocence, because some of us had to grow up quick. We had to become the adult in the family. We had to do things that younger children may have not, not appropriate for younger kids to do, or to be a part of, or to witness, or to experience. So if you grew up in poverty, especially if you grew up in an abusive household, an addictive household, this is you. Your innocence was taken away from you. And what reconnecting to your inner child does is it allows for us to connect to those younger aspects of yourself, to be able to reintroduce a new innocence to you. So, beyond even just the strong emotional reactions that we have as adults, what else is there that we have? As a child, I think of myself like, what did we play with? Reconnecting to our childhood isn't just about nurturing those younger aspects of ourselves, but it is also about tapping into what brought you joy and how was that snuffed out? What are you doing in life for money? What are you working? Is it bringing you happiness? Are you fulfilled? Do you dread going to work? Are you going to work because it brings money or because it brings fulfillment or both? Or even if your job brings you fulfillment and you're not finding fulfillment or inspiration outside, it is a sign that somewhere within your childhood that there was a piece that has been overlooked. So I think of being a child, how I played teacher so much and how I put on these extravagant classrooms. And I loved just teaching. Like, I was this only child, so I taught my stuffed animals and my dolls. And I also wanted to be a dancer. I love dancing, but I was told that I could never make money being a dancer unless I was a stripper in Las Vegas or a showgirl, and so those excitements quickly were diminished. And so I want you to think about what were the things that brought you joy as a child. I loved also painting on the sidewalks. I loved sidewalk chalk. I loved just painting in general. I just love being outside and connecting with nature. And so I think it's also very beneficial for you to write things that you love to do as a child, things that you loved to do that you forgot how to do. Riding a bicycle. I remember as an adult, the first time I picked up bicycling again, I felt so free, and I was able to tap into that childlike one and the magic of all that is around us. These are aspects of ourselves that are wanting to be reclaimed and to be revisited and rebirthed, because we have lost insight to the magic of the things that are around us, such as bees flying around from flower to flower, or butterflies that are free within their migration patterns, and little animals and squirrels. Like, these are things that I think of as a child that were taught were like, my head was always in the clouds. I was taught that I was just a daydreamer, and I never was concentrated because my head was always in the clouds. And so these are things that brought me joy that I had to rein in order to be a part of what other people wanted to be like in school, especially in order to get decent grade. I had to focus more, and I had to grow up really quick because I was in a household. My mom was a teenager when she had me, and my grandma was my main caregiver. And so there was just like so many different things where innocence was lost. And tapping into these aspects of my adult life has brought in a significant amount of joy. Whereas you can see people fighting and being untrustworthy or not trusting others. because they have that armor up, right? Because we feel that everybody is out to get us. And when we get into the state of childlike wonder, we can trust that we are okay and we are safe, and that the little things are the magical things, that the mundane is actually very magical, and that we can see also how the rest of the world may not have that, yet even in that is totally okay. Tapping into our inner self, our inner child, allows us to also see everybody else's younger self. So when angry people are out and I can see them arguing with each other, or I see other people acting in way of defenses, what I see is not the label of being an asshole or being a dickhead. It is me seeing them as a younger person, as a child, and wondering, I wonder what they must have gone through in order to behave in the way that they are behaving, and learning compassion for that. Because tapping into our inner child isn't just about when we're able to give ourselves that type of compassion and empathy. When we are the ones that are able to be there, we're not expecting others to have that for us, right? Because we can have that for ourselves. But what it does do is it allows for us to give compassion to others, and to see that everyone is just honestly acting in a way from a hurt version of our younger selves. We're all just reenacting old childhood wounds over and over again in a way to get needs met. The only way that we have been taught, and this is exactly why I do what I do, because these are new ways to get needs met so we don't have to perpetuate the same cycles of acting out our childhood hurts onto other people. So within this chapter of the book, I go into like here obstacles that arise when connecting to our inner child. So as I brought up the timeline of what working with our timeline and going to these fragmented versions of ourselves and what that entail, that can be very difficult, right? This isn't meant to be like a sit down and I'm going to get this done right now. This is something where you do over time. As strong reactions and emotions come up, we are able to identify the emotion, identify other times that we have experienced this emotion, and identify the ages and what are those experiences at those ages that had us feeling this way. And then we can visualize how to be there for the younger version of ourselves. You're not going to be doing this all in one sitting. That would be way too much. This is about learning how to trust the process. You, again, with all chapters, and this is can bring up a lot, and to have people there for support and to let people know that this is what you're working through. So you can at least be there to talk to others, or even doing voice notes or voice memos and speaking out loud can help for you to really process some of the inner child stuff, hurts that come up while we are consciously excavating and learning how to integrate. Because this is what it is. It's we know a lot of the times we know what the hurts are, but like how do we integrate that? And so this is what that is. We are taking those pieces and now we are showing up for ourselves at all those different aspects of our younger selves. And by visualizing them and visualizing ourselves meeting these younger versions of ourselves, this is the integration. And then the integration of this would be to really like anchor this in, would be being outside, arting, creating, whatever that is for you, singing, dancing, acting a fool, I don't know, hula hooping, riding your bike, playing games. It can be anything that brings out that creativity and that play, and anything that allows you to express yourself so you can consciously be aware of the emotions and how to consciously be there for yourself and visualize this happening and nurturing you. And then you go and you release that and you anchor it with being outside and creating and making a mess or rolling around in the dirt. I don't know, whatever that is for you. Because it is very important, right? So another thing too that happens with inner child healing is self-care, self-nurturing becomes top priority. Because if we are someone that wasn't given the gift of innocence as a child or had that taken away, we don't know how to nurture ourselves. Chances are we've been raised codependent and to enable others. We have been the ones that have been um, giving everything in order to people please, in order to not rock the boat, in order to keep peace and to keep things predictable. So we knew how to handle circumstances. And so self care and self nurturing is of utmost importance. In all honesty, at times when I am feeling at my worst, some of the things that I do is I literally hug myself. And I know how ridiculous this can sound, as I have scoffed at this in my past. You can hold yourself on the head and say, it's okay, and I trust you, and you are loved and supported. You can hug your whole body and you can learn to be the anchor for yourself, that you can be that emotional and physical nurturing, that we don't have to go to the exterior and sometimes harmful exterior circumstances to reach for that comfort. So self-care can also, it can be, and no, it absolutely should involve the word no. Saying no when you are working through these processes, recognizing what makes you want to say yes if it's not a true yes. If you're only saying yes because you want to make someone happy, because you don't want to let someone down, because you feel that they will be disappointed, it's not a real yes. That is a yes for someone else. So learning to say no is a huge act of self-care. Learning what your values are, it's very much a part of that too. And so tapping into your inner child and what brings you excitement, what brings you that joy, and don't sway from that. Sure, we have the adult things that we need to do, but there are also joyful moments within the adult things going on in our life. And it's really about allowing this process to deconstruct the harshness and the jaded eyes and the perception of everybody is out to get us and we must protect ourselves at all costs. This is a very, I just feel it's like such a ripe time for this type of growth because it's not meant to be harsh. It's not meant to be grueling. It's a softening of the heart. It is a softening of the boundaries. It is learning to trust yourself, that you don't have to fight anymore, that you are so safe no matter what. Of course, I mean, there's different circumstances, but like I'm talking about, like you are there for yourself and you don't have to fight for other people to be there for you because you now know how to do that. And you can allow other people that process once you do tap into that for yourself. So this is a really it's an emotional time and it's a joyful time because you begin to, at this time, if you've gone through the deconstruction process, you can start to see the beauty in the little things. You can start to see synchronicities coming together. You can start to feel how the universe talks through beautiful simplicities and serendipitous moments. When you allow yourself to see the magic in what has been here all along, it is freeing. And also, it requires that softening. So, again, it is learning about the softness within you, which is scary because that softness that's all that we try to protect in a world that teaches how to be so harsh and hard and to go fight for what you want and to fight against everything else and to fight for injustices. Softening can be one of the most crucial things to do, but also one of the most can be very scary. It absolutely can be intimidating because it feels like everybody is so hard, but you don't want to be hard anymore. You want to experience life and you want to heal these armored pieces and you want to learn how to trust and you want to learn to trust yourself above all else and learn how to be there for you. When we can learn how to be there for all of these younger versions of ourselves, and it doesn't have to, this is like my inner teenager, right? Because my teenager years were so angsty. I also had so much anger, but within that was already armored pieces of little Elaine, just like wanting to be loved and heard and not knowing the emotions that come out. And I just was so angry. And so it's me showing up for the teenager Elaine. And it's me showing up for the young 20-year-old Elaine that couldn't say no to relationships that were so abusive and didn't have boundaries and couldn't stay away. And it's me showing up for even the 30-year-old version of Elaine and staying and sacrificing my well-being to have the vision of a family. Those parts of the younger versions of ourselves that we didn't have the awareness and we didn't have the insights to be there or to be that loving person for ourselves, and that we continue to project that onto others. So this is why, for the following chapters that I do have, our next chapter is the shadow aspects and how that is, how we've created the shadow aspects to get our needs met. For the continuing chapters, it all comes back to the inner child because it's the foundation of how we react in the world, how we learn to get our needs met. And so getting in tune with our inner child at all ages is, like I've said in the beginning, it's fundamental. It is a foundational aspect of our healing journey, and one that you can spend some time with and really contemplate, feel into, create, and learn more about you and what brings you inspiration, what brings you joy, and how to be present for yourself and for that. So there, in my book, I have amazing suggestions. So finger painting is one of them to get into it. But one of them that I really would like to also say is creating, people call them vision boards, but I would suggest creating a mood board. So there could be like how I want to be in the world, or even as different stages of my life. What did I create? How would I perceive myself at this time? And what did I want to experience at that time? So, if I first come to, okay, my 30-year-old self, I wanted the happy family, the happy life, the fence, and all of the things. What I wanted, what I showed on the outside, but what I was really feeling was completely different. And so those type of creative outlets really bring out your inner self, your truth, your what has been wanting to be voiced for all this time. Another aspect that I found very interesting as well, because we're so used to doing things that we do all the time, right? Um, we have a certain way of doing things. And when we do things the same way all the time, it keeps us in the same type of cycle. So to break that cycle, one of the things, and that I have suggested in my book, is to start writing or drawing or doodling with your non-dominant hand. So what this does is this help connects your left and your right hemisphere brains. So because when we become disconnected in trauma, it disconnects the hemispheres, and therefore that creates the disconnect, and why it also cuts off our body, because our body is being thrown into fighting and fleeing mode while our brain and our emotional aspects shut down. Our emotional aspects is also our creativity aspects. shuts down in order for us to actually survive this because some of the things can be too much. So when we do something that is opposite of our dominant side, for example, creating art or writing with our non-dominant side, we're able to stimulate different hemispheres within the brain and connect that. Also, it builds more strength and it creates the neural pathways to begin firing on different cylinders than the different brain and neurochemicals for deeper healing. That's why it's important to switch things up and to do things differently because we've done things the same and been creating the same results. So, what can you do differently? How can you step out of your comfort zone to start firing different neural pathways? What can you do? Maybe that is with your non dominant side. These are just interesting activities that you can do to tap into that. There's also quick meditations that you can do to meet your inner child. What was your favorite fairy tale or storybook? What imaginary creatures did you believe in? What was your favorite game to play with friends? What was the most exciting thing you ever saw? What did you imagine yourself doing when you grew up? What did you believe was possible that adults thought were impossible? These are such beautiful questions to examine your inner dialogue and to really tap into who you were and what your true likes and excitements and joys were in life. And so I really, again, you can get the full book on Amazon. The link will be in the description box below. You can also reach out to me. I will have my email and everything within the description box. And if you have any questions or anything, you can comment. And if you also feel guided to, please subscribe and share and hit the notifications because any type of interaction helps for this content to get passed around to whoever may be needing this. And I can't wait to discuss the next chapter, which is how we create shadow aspects in order to get our needs met. And I hope that this video was helpful in guiding you back to the most authentic version of yourself.